Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It's good to join you. My first question is for Mr. Myers, in charge of finance for the Minister's Department. We see $138 million in these SUPs for the Canada-Quebec transfer and for the interim federal health initiative. The Minister mentioned $173 million new spending in the budget for illegal border crosser processing. How long has your department been working on the numbers behind the SUP submission and the budgetary submission? I'm assuming it's probably into last summer, but do you have an approximate date?
Thank you for the question. So I just to make sure I understood the question, I think you were referring to the regular migration costs of $10.4 million, which are in the supplementary estimate C. So
the two amounts.
Oh,
how long has your department been working on the budgetary asks? My experience in cabinet would suggest probably 6 months or so, but I'm looking for your timeline.
I'd say between 3 to 4 months in total. Yeah.
So 4 months in total.
Yeah.
So last October, November, that time frame. Minister, in October of last year, yourself and Minister Goodale appeared before the committee on the illegal border crossing issue. And my colleague, the Liberal MP, Mr. Anna Sangari, asked you specifically whether resources were in place to admit and process all illegal border crossers. You at that time, Minister, said, quote, "We have done it with the resources we have. It's been a question of being a little more efficient," end quote. Your DG has said since October, November, they've been planning for up to $200 to $400 million in new spending. A memo to your Deputy Minister warned of costs of up to $3 billion to 2021 from the illegal crossings. And the Deputy Minister memo to you in the fall suggested an urgent need to revisit the Safe Third Country Agreement because of the increased crossings last year. Why did you tell committee that you were working with internal resources to handle the problem?
Well, we were able to redeploy, first of all, the response to the situation that we faced in the summer was not just IRCC. We worked across government to make sure that all the agencies were
But Minister, you said you were redeploying internal resources.
Yes.
You used the word being nimble in one of your appearances.
Right.
But your department was preparing submissions in the hundreds of millions of dollars. So which is it?
Well,
were you not aware of what your department was preparing?
Aware. No,
or were you not being straight with this committee?
No, I'm answering your question. The response was based on what we were able to do at the time. And what we were able to do at the time is to redeploy resources. I attended the case processing center in Montreal, and I saw firsthand immigration officers pulled from other parts of the country to come and help the increased demand, to meet the increased demand in Montreal because of the Lacolle border. That's an example of redeploying existing resources.
But in your response to a question from a Liberal MP, you suggested to the committee that handling the illegal border crossings could be handled within your budget, yet the SUPs and the budget from a few weeks ago are asking for hundreds of millions of dollars of more money. I don't understand how you could suggest to the committee that you were going to work internally to handle it.
Referring to at the time was our ability to meet the influx at the time, and we were able to do that. As I said, in the Guy Favreau complex in Montreal, we went from having a few eligibility hearings a day to needing the demand just went through the roof.
There was over 7,000 in July and August alone when you visited, Minister, at that one crossing.
Some of those folks were receiving eligibility hearings at the border, but a lot of them were being sent to Montreal because we just couldn't process all of them at the border. But in order to make sure that we met and we eliminated that backlog, we redeployed immigration officers from other parts of Quebec and other parts of Canada to go to Montreal, and we created more space. We used more office space, and we had more interviews, and that's why we were able to go and eliminate the 6,000 person backlog in terms of the eligibility hearings.
Minister,
that's an example of something.
When your deputy said that there needed to be change on an urgent need to revisit the Safe Third Country Act, and your department was suggesting costs of up to $3 billion, including social costs, out to 2021. You were telling this committee that it could be handled by moving internal or being nimble. I would suggest to you that your department was preparing major budget submissions that contradicted your evidence to this committee.
So I would suggest that you're conflating two different things. You're conflating our ability as a department to meet what at the time was an unusual influx of asylum seekers. You're conflating that with the downstream costs projected over the next, I don't know how many years, to provinces, to social programs, to unemployment.
They're all the same costs.
So those are
Minister, you've acknowledged that the provinces will bear the social assistance.
Yeah.
There's a federal health interim.
Yes.
There's been increases to
Yeah.
that. But fixing the gap in the Safe Third Country Agreement would save the provinces from this up to $3 billion cost. Yet in September, after visiting the Montreal border crossing,
Yes.
you said in the House that the Safe Third Country Agreement is working, quote, fantastically well for Canada, end quote.
It is, because, and I'll tell you why I said that, and I continue to believe that the Safe Third Country Agreement actually has been really good for Canada, because it allows both countries to better handle asylum seekers. And I mean by that by saying that it is supported by the United Nations. The principle behind the Safe Third Country Agreement is that an asylum seeker seeking asylum in either Canada or the United States should not engage in asylum shopping by going from Canada to the United States or vice versa. So in terms of the number of people who present themselves at a port of entry,
but Minister, if it's working
countries,
fantastically well, why were you, Mr. Rodriguez, and other members of your caucus going down, speaking at the University of Minnesota, other places, discouraging people from coming?
I'm afraid I need to
because
end that
because
round.
those people are crossing between ports of entry.